Hello everybody. If you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know that I like using some of the more old school traditional taxidermy methods. So today we're going to mount this squirrel, but I'm going to do more of an in-depth kind of how-to using those traditional methods. So for my initial cut, most guys when they do squirrels now, they'll do a cut along the belly or along the back depending on the mount. I prefer cutting along this color line along the back legs. The reason for that is I find it's a lot easier to hide the stitches back there than it is on the belly or on the back. So depending, like this mount we're going to do just a squirrel on all fours. It'd be hard to hide those stitches, whereas back here on the back of the legs you barely even notice it. Okay, I'm going to do my best to keep this squirrel in the frame the whole time. So we've got our initial cut, so the next thing we got to do is start skinning out the rest of it. So you're going to need to use your knife a little bit initially, just to loosen up some of that stuff, and then after that you'll be able to use your fingers a lot. So I recommend whenever you're skinning anything, if you're able to pull the hide off with your fingers, do that as opposed to using your knife. You're a lot less likely to cut a hole with your finger than you are with a knife. So if you need to use your knife, obviously use it, but anytime you can use your fingers, especially these small guys like squirrels, you can work that off with your fingers probably faster than you could with a knife anyway. So loosen that up all around the back legs, all the way. Come back here to the vent. You're going to use your knife a little bit. So at this point, what I'm going to do, kind of got this guy worked around a little bit more. That is, I'm actually going to cut these back legs off. So kind of just got to find the joint, like there's the ball joint right there. Just once you do it enough times, you kind of do it pretty quick. But first few times you do it, it'll probably be a little bit of hacking around, but I want to cut that off. Don't cut the hide, just cut the leg. So the leg is still attached to the hide, just like that. And then we're going to work our thumb all the way around so we can get all the way around the tail. You want to expose that tailbone all the way around it, like this. One of the easiest ways to pull that tailbone out is actually just a pair of needle nose pliers. And you want to be careful you don't rip the tail off. So you kind of just put some pressure on. You may have to go side to side initially here. I go back and forth. Of course, this one's going to be stubborn because I'm filming it and trying to show you guys how easy it is. But normally they pop right out, but because I'm trying to show you, stubborn little bastard. Which is typical. So you need to get that tailbone out of there. Keep working at it. Pops out. I think he's got some scars on his tail here. You can see. I think that's what's causing the problem. At least that's gonna be my excuse. That's why it's not going. It's already starting to rip there. I think he's got some scars in his tail, so I'm gonna have to slow this down a little bit. Hardest pulling tail I've had in a long time. But it just goes to show you sometimes things don't go the way you plan, but you just work with it. So there's definitely something going on with this tail. It's not pulling because they normally don't pull. There, that's what's supposed to happen right from the start. So we'll have to fix that tail part later on, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So at this point, we're gonna just start working that hide down. Using our fingers. All the way down to get to the front legs. We just take our finger and we kind of just work it around that front leg and poke it right through. And gently pull it down until you feel it stop. If you pull any harder, you'll actually pop the whole front leg right off, paw right off. So as soon as you feel some resistance, stop. And we're going to cut down through the front leg. Same as with the back leg. That. Gently start working our way down towards the head. With the ears, there's one ear. You want to make sure you're skinning this. Like this is the line of the hide. If you cut along that, you're going to cut a big hole in the ear. You have to actually cut kind of the top of this little triangle looking shape here where the ear cartilage is. Cut at the top of it, then you'll end up with just a small ear hole. If you follow the line where it looks like you should cut it, you're going to end up with a great big gaping hole you're going to have to fix afterwards. So just keep working our way down. Next we're going to come to the eyes. Here, that's the eye. So you can see I'm kind of pinching it here and keeping it under pressure. Just gently work my knife back and forth over top of where that eye is. And you'll end up with a normal sized eye hole, same thing. Keeping lots of pressure, and just gently work your knife over top of it. Lower jaw, just kind of run your knife down those teeth. Free that up. Free the cheeks up. Cut down through the nose cartilage. Just kind of run your knife right along the teeth. Like that. And lower jaw there. So now we've got our squirrel skinned. So the next step, we're gonna grab a flushing board. Put that squirrel on the flushing board and we're gonna start cleaning him up. So all this fat and stuff has to come off there and the meat that's left on there. Luckily, there's not a lot on a squirrel normally. It needs to get cleaned up. But the little bit that's on there definitely does. So I just use a knife. Some guys use paper towel, works really well as well. You can just kind of rub the paper towel, actually grip that fat meat pretty well. But I'm just using my knife. You just gotta make sure you pull it straight down. You're kind of scraping that fat meat off there. You're not cutting because the squirrel hide's very thin, so if you do that, you are going to cut it. Scrape all that off of there. That's pretty much all you got to do for a squirrel. Most of the stuff that's on here will dry really quickly. So the next thing we're going to do is clean up these legs. So with Most modern forms have legs attached. We're going to be building our own form shortly, and with the legs, there's a few different methods for the legs. You can either make your own, like when we make the form, you can make the leg that fits into the hole. You can wrap the legs. That's the method I typically use rather than making a whole another leg and stuffing it down there. Is actually do kind of like when you do a bird and you with the wing, you pull the wing out, bone out, you clean all the meat off the bone, but the actual bones are still in, or the legs on the bird, you clean all the meat off. That's the same way I do with the squirrels, is I clean all the meat off the bones, leave the bones actually inside the leg, and just wrap them up to build them back up to the shape they should be. Works really well for me. It's fast, and then you keep the proper anatomy where the joints are and everything. It works really good. So for that, all I'm going to do is just take my knife and just cut off as much of this meat as possible without completely separating the two halves of the leg. You want to keep the joint intact. Clean as much of the meat off as you can. Nice thing about squirrels is you can get them pretty clean with just using your knife. Any of the little bits that are still left on there, with a bit of borax, will dry right out, and they'll pretty well mummify, and you never have to worry about smell. Like obviously, if you left the whole leg and everything in there, you might have some issues, but with the little bit of meat that's left on, we scrape it with our knife like this. I've done, I don't even know how many squirrels I've done, and I've never once had an issue with any kind of hair slipping or rotting or molding or anything like that. So I can say from experience it works quite well. So people who don't do a lot of the traditional methods will tell you it's wrong. I always say is, as long as the end product looks good and it lasts, it's not wrong. So I have no issue with using commercial forms. I don't prefer them. I prefer doing it this way. It gives me a lot more freedom to put that squirrel in whatever position I want, which you'll see later on as we actually start getting into this squirrel. And if anybody, you guys have actually watched my channel for any amount of time, you'll know full well that a lot of the squirrels and other animals that I mount are not done in real commercially available positions. So I don't really have a whole lot of options for a lot of the stuff that I do other than doing this, but just a happy coincidence, it's ultimately the way that I prefer to do it. So. See, I got that leg bone pretty well cleaned up. There's a little bit of stuff on there, but like I said, cover that with borax and they dry right up. So, let's do the back legs now. Back legs I find are a little bit easier, a little bit more meat on them. Comes off a little bit easier mostly. There, so next step is going to be put him into borax.
So this borax is just the standard stuff you buy at any grocery store. It's nothing crazy. Important that you have to get everything covered, especially because we're leaving the bones inside the legs like this. You really got to make sure you cover those really well so that they'll dry out. So make sure those are totally covered. Make sure you open it up. This. Make sure there's no folds, especially like the armpits or things like that. You might get folds. So do this. Kind of put some into the tail. Just gotta be gentle with this one because it's got the little rip in it, but not a big deal. There, so we are gonna leave him in there for now, and we're gonna go make our form, and then we'll come back and get him.
So to make our form, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the body out of wood wool and twine. The head, I'll show you afterwards, I've made a mold of a squirrel head, and I use expandable foam. That's the only part that I use foam for, is just the head, just to try and hold that real specific shape. So the wood wool, you usually just buy it. It comes in just in bags like this. So, pretty simple. Just grab a big wad of wood wool. And then you can use string or twine, it doesn't really matter. But I'm just going to kind of get this into a rough tube shape to start. And I'm going to start wrapping it with that twine. You want to wrap this pretty tight because you want it to be quite dense. What we're going to do is compare it to our actual squirrel to make sure we've got the right shape. I'm literally just wrapping that string around that wood wool to get in the shape. So got it pretty much bang on first try. After you've done it enough times, you kind of know how much wood wool you need and everything else. If you're using bigger animals, if you're using a bigger one, you're probably going to need more wood wool, be a lot more tweaking it. But with a squirrel, they're pretty basic. It's a squirrel form is basically just a torpedo. The biggest thing is making sure you get the length right. So over the front part here a little bit, make sure that's good and locked down. Back. Like that. And then tie this off.
So you can see there's our form. It fits over top of the actual squirrel, and you put them side by side. They look pretty close. So next step we're going to go is take that head out and get that attached to this thing.
So here's the mold I made of that squirrel head. It's just made out of Bondo. So I'm just going to pop it open here. So yeah, it's just just made a Bondo in 2 parts. Like that. End up with this guy. So there's my squirrel head. I'm going to take it over to the sander and touch it up a little bit. Just smooth all these edges out of it, and then we'll get it attached to this guy. Okay, so the next step in attaching the head to here is you're going to take a piece of wire, bend at the bottom like that, put a sharp point on here, and then we're going to put that through all the way. It comes up like that. Here a little bit more, because I want that to kind of lock into the form. And then our head is going to go into that wire like that. So I'm going to grab some super glue here. This is where it kind of goes a little bit away from some of the traditional, but super glue is faster than other glue, so I prefer using it. So that. Perfect. We'll let that sit and dry. While that's drying, we're going to get the legs all wired up. Got this guy out of the borax now. You can see legs are all nicely coated and looking pretty good already. That a little bit of meat on there's not going to be a problem. So to wire these guys, what you're going to do is sharpen a piece of wire. So for the back legs, I go kind of right at the heel, poke that through, run it up and make sure that I've got enough sticking past the leg that it'll actually have enough to go into the form. Then what I like to do is just make sure, coat this with borax again. Really make sure that everything's dry. Now at this point, you can either wrap these with wood, wool, and twine. You can wrap it with just twine with this. But honestly, what I found works the fastest and the easiest is just masking tape, which again, steps away from tradition a little bit, but it is the most efficient way to do it. So what I'll do is I'll kind of twist the masking tape up like this as I'm putting it on. Kind of helps build that up a little bit. Just from masking tape. It's gonna have to get built up a little bit more, but it is what I found to be the quickest way to remake the leg with the least amount of messing around and everything else. So there, I've already got the leg made. I'm just going to do that again on the other leg. And then what I like to do is when I actually mount it, which we'll do shortly here, I need to build it up a little bit more once it's inside the hide. Then I will do that then. So again, just a little bit of borax on that leg. Tape. At this point, you're probably looking at this going, what is this wanker doing? But trust the process. it'll all look good in the end. So before I do the front legs, what I'm going to do is sew the front mouth shut. So I used to do this years ago with small animals like squirrels. I would sew the mouth shut before I mounted it. It worked really well. I don't know why I ever stopped doing it. I started doing it the way guys do now, where they split the lips and they try and tuck the lips on it. It works good on bigger animals. With squirrels, it's a real pain in the butt to do. So I started doing it again. I've experimented a couple times sewing the mouth shut and using that instead of trying to tuck the lips on the squirrels, and it's actually been working really well. So we are going to do that. So take my gloves off because I cannot sew with gloves on at this point. Real biohazards you might have from handling a dead animal are gone anyway. I'm going to start right at the front like this. And then this bottom lip. Like that. And then when I sew it, I'm not actually gonna, I'm not going from the bottom side, I'm going inside the lip here and catching it. And the same here, I'm going kind of into the lip from the inside. So I'm totally, all my stitches are on the inside. They're not going through from the fur side. I'm kind of catching the hide on this side and pulling it tight. And that way you don't have to see any of the stitches on the outside. It kind of pulls it all together. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this method for bigger animals, but for the small guys like squirrels, it has been working really well for me. So. That. I'm going to do the other half of the mouth. Now to wire the front legs, we're going to turn this guy back, fur side out. You can see there's the mouth already, looking pretty good. And we're going to put the front legs back where they're supposed to be. Like that. We're going to take our wire. I like to go right kind of in the bottom foot pad, right between these two parts here. I'll just push that through on both. Like that. Turn them back inside out. Same thing, pull that wire so I got a lot. Some more borax on here. And then I do the same thing, just wrap it with that tape. Front legs, you don't have to build up as much because there's not as much to them. That. Last one. Just like that. Turn our squirrel right back out again. Close the arms out. Just like that. And you can see there, the arms are already all filled out. That's good. So we're gonna go back over to our form and do some work on that, and then actually start mounting this thing. So what I'm doing now is I've got the form pushed up into here, and I'm just gonna mark on my form the center of both eyes. To make sure I get those in the right spot. Pull that back out so you don't just pull the head right off the body again. There. So you see I've got those little dots where my eyes are supposed to be. So the eyes now, put those right dead center so I know that's where they're supposed to be. I'm just going to do a little play around those eyes. This gives you something to work with. Make sure the eye looks the way it's supposed to. It gives you the ability to give that squirrel a little bit of a expression if necessary. That. So the last step before I start pulling the hide over the form is I'm going to take some glue. Just put a little bit of glue around the mouth, on the end of the nose. Build that up a bit. This is the only place I use glue on a squirrel, is just around the mouth and the nose. Pretty much everywhere else the hide will stay in place, but it doesn't hurt to add a little bit of glue just around those, because that's kind of important that those things stay where you put them. So take this guy and make sure you put it the right way. Down on top. That. Eyes roughly in the position they're supposed to be in. And then what we're going to do is I've got the wire pulled back as far as I can here. So I'm going to put it where it needs to be, and I've actually marked on the form where I want that leg to go. Just push the wire right through. You can see there's my mark for the other side. And then just bend that wire over, give it a pull, lock it in place. I'll do the same with this one. There's my mark right there, so I'll just line that up with that. Push it through. This is why you want to make sure when you're wrapping these forms you keep them nice and dense, so this wire actually has something to lock into. So I'm going to pull this guy down. Out of the way. Back legs. So for those, you want to make sure that it's not all twisted up. Make sure you've got the hide all the way here. If it's twisted, it will not work. So pull that wire back here, through my mark, lock it into place. Last one. Make sure it's not twisted. Mark. Push it through. Lock it in place. Now as for the tail, I'm going to put a wire through that as well. But before we do, I've got a little bit of white glue here, just like kids crafting glue. I'll take my tail wire, actually put some of that glue on the tail wire, and then run that down inside there. There, so go down the hole all the way, and I'll actually poke it through the end of the tail. And then take this wire here. Same thing. Put it in place. Make sure the tail isn't twisted up. The reason I like using glue on the wire, especially with one like this where we've had that little issue with the tail trying to split when we were pulling it, that glue just helps lock that tail onto the wire so that you don't have to worry about it breaking off later on or anything like that. So that's locked on. Pull that tail down a little bit. So at this point we've got our squirrel roughly kind of in shape. Again, everyone's probably looking at this thinking this looks like crap, but we will get there. So I'm just going to trim this wire off the tail a little bit shorter so it's stabbing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this cotton batten and I'm just going to build up a little bit around the back legs just to fill them in a little bit more. What I like about doing this too is I can make it as big or little as I want very quickly and very easily, as opposed to a commercial form. If the legs are too big, you're having to put it in, take it out, sand it. If they're too small, you have to build them up anyway. Like this way here, it just solves a lot of the problems that those forms have. So take a little bit of this and just kind of stuff it up in there, build up the stomach and the squirrel a little bit more. You can do this as much or as little as you feel the need to, depending on the squirrel. Kind of get a little bit up into that one armpit there, need a little bit filled out. There, that's looking pretty good. Legs are looking way better. Perfect, so now it is time to start sewing. Hopefully this is in the frame for you guys. If not, it's pretty self-explanatory. Just sew up our cut along the back. There's nothing rocket science about it. Hardest thing you gotta deal with is just those wires, toes and everything, trying to catch your thread the whole time. Just back and forth. Keep your stitches relatively close together. Again, I like doing it along the back legs, right along that color line, because that's where it hides the stitches the best. The color line kind of distorts where the stitches are already, so it hides it pretty good. So I'm just gonna hammer through sewing this up the rest of the way. It's kind of a boring part of the process. Butthole, try and make sure it's roughly centered where it should be. Sewed up. So let's start positioning this guy, and it'll start to look like a squirrel, I swear. So next thing we gotta do is start pinning some of the eyes and stuff in place. So what I like to do is kind of right in the front corner, give it one pin there, pull the eye back a bit, one pin in there, and you gotta make sure you're always looking to make sure everything's lined up and not twisted. Next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut these wires off a little bit, so they don't need to be that long. Going to put one pin at each corner of the mouth, kind of hold that position, roughly where I want it. You can see with the ear, it all looks normal inside there. There's not a big hole. If you're not careful, like I was telling you before, with that initial cut when you're skinning it, you'll end up having a big hole inside the ear and you'll be able to see the form through the ear, and then you gotta try and fix that. Okay, so this guy is just getting mounted onto this little piece of 1x6. I'll probably stain this later on, but just for now, position. So the squirrel, so we're gonna bend his legs up. That. That's what I like about leaving the bones and everything in there, is the foot can only bend, and the knees can only bend where they're supposed to, so you know you're getting it in the right spot. So bend those right up. That, his front legs are going to be straightforward like that. Sometimes I'll bend these wires out of the way while I'm in position. So the back leg's gonna be sort of like this roughly. Front there. Something like this. More or less. So when you're mounting anything, it's good to have reference photos. Unfortunately for me, my reference photos are on the phone that I'm using to film the video, so I had to pause it for a little bit just to kind of make sure that I have it looking the way I want it to. So it's more or less what I want to do with this guy in this position. He's kind of Squirrel's out like sort of hunchy over back like this. So he's going to be about here roughly. Something like that. So I'm going to drill a hole. His back leg about here, I think. When I drill these holes, I drill them right through the board because I want this. The wire is long enough. I want it to go right through so I can lock it into place in the bottom. If it's not long enough, it's not a big deal. I'll just glue it in place. If I left them long enough that I can slip it right through, I will do that. That one there. Probably put this front foot. Give it a wide stance. So this one more or less over here. This one's longer. For now, I'll just bend this wire over. Kind of helps lock it into place. So, put this other one probably over here. I want him to have a nice big wide stance, looking like he's kind of about to jump off or something like that. That's the idea. So put that one over there. The last one. About where it's at actually. Kind of got him looking like he's on alert. So he's starting to look a bit like a squirrel again. His back legs, I'm just going to kind of tuck the back there, give the leg joints and right there. Now the tail, probably kind of a traditional squirrel kind of bend So I'm going to put a couple pins in here just to make sure that tail doesn't move on us. Other side. Like that, just kind of help lock that in place. Feet. I'm going to use these T-pins. I don't like using these on the face of squirrels anymore because they're too thick. They leave pinholes in the face, but they still work really good when you're trying to pin the feet out. Into like a block of wood or something like this, they work quite well. I started using these, I think they're crochet pins on the face of the squirrel. They work really, really well because they don't leave that big of a hole, so there's less to try and fill in afterwards. So that has been a huge improvement. Good. You want to pin the feet because if you don't, as they dry, they're gonna kind of twist up and everything. So I like pinning them this as we go. You can kind of adjust them as necessary. This one in a little bit actually. So. You can see as I'm mounting this squirrel, the advantage of using sort of a form is, oh, I don't like that leg position. I just undo it and I move it a little bit. And it's not a big deal. I have total flexibility with how I want to position that squirrel as opposed to using a solid, rigid form. That's where it is, that's where it is. Unless you take the whole thing apart to adjusting the form, there's not nearly as much flexibility for adjustments. So. Head wherever I want it, move it back, whatever I need to do to get that squirrel in the position I want it to be in. So, just the bottom down a little bit more. It's looking pretty good. Let's adjust that eye. You kind of, as squirrels are drying, you gotta keep checking them for the first little bit until everything kind of locks into place, just doing some minor adjustments, but overall, I think he's looking pretty good. We're gonna put this guy in front of a fan, get him to start drying, and then check on him this afternoon. Had this guy in front of the fan all day. Double checking, making sure everything, make sure the eyes are still good. This one's a bit of an adjustment. The small animals like the squirrel, you have a few hours after you're done where you can kind of adjust stuff still. And then like the eyes will start really drying up. Like by tomorrow morning, the eyes will be pretty much set where they're going to be. So any little adjustments you gotta do, you gotta make sure you get on it. Don't do this project in the afternoon and come back the next morning and expect to be able to do any adjustments. The feet, you can adjust those for maybe a couple days. Which is something I was going to address, I forgot, is I don't skin out the feet on a squirrel. It's completely unnecessary. There's so little anything on those feet as far as meat or anything like that. They will just dry up rock hard on their own. You do not need to skin out the feet and the toes and everything else. Bigger animals, yes, you need to do that. Small animals like a squirrel or a weasel, things like that, do not bother with it. It's a waste of time. They will dry up on their own perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. As long as you get a fan blowing on them to dry them out, get some borax on it, initially they will be fine, so don't worry about that. But you'll have a couple days where you can adjust some of the toes if necessary, but speaking of which, just a little bit. A lot of times it's actually better to leave the toes for a couple days before you start really messing with them, because once they start getting stiff, then you can actually bend it into place and they'll stay where you leave them, and otherwise they'll just spring right back. So I'm not messing with it too much. I've kind of pinned the main pad of the foot down, but the toes themselves, I'll leave that, and a couple days I'll come in and just tweak them if they need it. But overall, he looks pretty good. Everything's sitting more or less where I want it to be. I'm gonna trim this wire off the tail now. It's had a little bit of time to dry. So with this guy, just kind of pull the hair all back. Trim that off as close as you can. Like that. And I can take black permanent marker and just touch up the end of that wire if you need to. And it'll disappear. And I kind of just work the tail a little bit up like that. The wire is completely concealed. So I'm going to get this guy back in front of the fan, and yeah, you can keep drying. Alright, it's been a day and a half or so, so the toes are starting to get a little bit hard. I've got my lovely assistant Abby with me here today. So what we're going to do is adjust some of these toes a little bit. So for that, I just take tweezers. I kind of just bend those toes if they need it. Like these ones are kind of twisting a little bit. They're not bad. I'll just take those and just kind of bend them back where they're supposed to be. Most of the time when you see squirrels with the feet that kind of look all knobbly and gnarled on a poorly done taxidermy mount, the reason for that is because the person who did it didn't take the time to position those toes properly. So if you do this, pin them down, pin them in place, take your tweezers, make sure they're all twisted right, position where they're supposed to be, they'll look totally fine. It's when the guys do this, they just kind of let the fingers go wherever, that it doesn't look very good. So this one, all the toes look pretty good. This back foot, again, they're looking pretty good. We'll just spread them out a little bit. But overall, they look decent. Same with that one. So yeah, this guy here is pretty much just this one foot. Toes are a little bit twisted. So like I said before, I like leaving these for a couple days. So they start to stiffen up, so when you bend it, they'll actually stay where you bend it to. But overall, this guy's looking really good. Everything, the eyes are looking good. They haven't shrunk up at all. The ears are still good in position. Yeah, quite happy with the way this guy's drying. So stick him back in front of the fan and leave him there until he's totally dry. What do you think, Abby? Alright, it's time to start pulling some of these pins out of here. So you do that. Just want to be careful. Sometimes it helps to kind of give the pin a little twist as you're going, especially with these smaller animals with really thin hide. If you pull that pin, if it's stuck in there for any reason, like if it's stuck with glue or anything else, if you pull on it really hard, there's the potential you could actually rip the hide. So just be gentle with it. Like I say, pull it, give it a little twist if you need to break it loose. Just work it out. Most of the time, these real thin pins come out quite easily, but every once in a while you get one that kind of gets stuck. Okay, he's looking really good. Gonna do a little bit of touch-up paint around the eyes. Stain this board so it looks a little nicer. You can see on the edge of the eye, take my little poker here, kind of right in on the inner circle of the eye here, there's sort of a white line. That's what we're going to fill in with the paint. If you don't do that, the eyes won't look right and it won't be a good looking mount. Like this one I don't think has too much, but there's still a little bit we're going to fill in around there. And then we're going to touch up around the nose and the mouth. You can see sealing that mouth shut just holds it all nice in place. And once you put a little bit of touch-up paint on there, it's going to look even better. Alright, I'm going to do my best to try and keep this all in the frame so it's easy for you guys to see. So I'm just going to go right on the edge of the eye there. Just like that. Same here, same thing. Very lightly. You don't want to go into the white around the eye, but you just want to kind of get the edge of it. Like that. And what I'm going to do is grab a Q-tip and that extra paint that's kind of on the actual eye in the middle. I just take the Q-tip, clean that up. Touch this one up a little bit more in that corner there. Good. See, that kind of brings some life back into those eyes. And next, way too much paint on there. I'm gonna do the nose. So this, just kind of follow where the nose pad is. And a little down like that. And then I kind of go just along the lips. Just lightly, just kind of highlight it a little bit. Doesn't have to be much. And it just kind of brings those lips back. So that's all you really have to do with the squirrel is paint it. Maybe do a little bit more. Even that nose pad out a little bit there. Perfect. So I'm gonna get this guy pulled off the board so I can stain it, and then yeah, we're getting real close to being done. Last step in this squirrel is put him back on the board. So what I'm gonna do is line up all the wires. Get them down into the holes. Like that. Do is take a little bit of super glue. I'm just gonna put a tiny little daub of super glue on each one of those wires just before I push it down all the way. All the way down. And that's what's going to lock this guy totally in place. Don't have to worry about it coming off. These front legs where the wires go through all the way, I'm going to take and bend them over that. Deal with those in a minute. The back legs, they don't go all the way through, and that's okay. The glue will hold it all in place there. So, looking really good. Paint dried good. There's no spots popped up or anything like that that need fixing. So just deal with these front wires. So sometimes on bigger mounts, I'll put the wires. I'll put them through, I'll kind of make like a twist in the end of it and lock it into the bottom of the board so you can take it off. But a mount like this, I don't intend on ever taking them off of this board. So what I'm going to do is just take a grinder and smooth these wires out here. And it kind of helps lock it into place because they kind of almost burn into the bottom of the board a little bit and hold it in place. So you don't have to do that. Obviously you can get away with just doing the super glue, or white glue would even work if you wanted to, if that's all you had. Put on the wires before you stick to the board, but just another option. If you do have your wires long enough to go all the way through, you can help it just helps lock it in place and hold it tight to that board. So I'll go do that quick, and then yeah, that'll be pretty much it for this guy. You'll be done. See the bottom here, it's all smooth, but those wires are actually kind of pushed into the board a little bit, so that's absolutely locked right into place and it is going nowhere. Here's our squirrel all done up, totally finished. Hopefully this video was helpful for you if you're trying to mount your own squirrel, or if you're just interested in how some of those older traditional taxidermy methods worked. As you can see, the results are still good. I still prefer using them. I think it's kind of cool keeping some of those older methods around. If you have any questions, if you're trying to mount your own squirrels, please reach out and I'll do my best to answer them for you.